I am excited today. It is time to bring a brand new MedCircle doctor onto the platform. You may have heard of this clinical psychologist. Her book, The Parenting Map, oh, excuse me. Her book, The Parenting Map, just dropped today, and it's already getting a lot of great reviews online. And I'm very excited to bring her to you because parenting is tough. I hear the emails. I get the emails from you parents. I'm an uncle. Being an uncle is hard sometimes too. So I have lots of questions for our guest today. I'm talking about the one and the only Dr. Shefali. Now, you may have heard of Dr. Shefali over the years. I certainly have. She's appeared on virtually every major network. She's been on the Oprah show. Have you heard of Oprah? Yes, of course. She's here with us today, and we're going to talk about the 7 traps of the parent-child relationship. It is with great pride and privilege that I welcome Dr. Shefali here to our YouTube channel. Dr. Shefali, hello.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be with you.
Congratulations on the book launch today. How
Oh,
exciting.
yes, very exciting. My latest book is The Parenting Map, and I really wrote this book as a how-to manual that we wish our kids came with.
Yes.
Because, Kyle, you're not a parent yet,
Yeah.
but let me tell you, we literally are doing the most difficult job in the world without ever being required to take a single course in psychology, without needing to get any degree of any sort, no mental status questionnaire. They just send us home with this child. It's not licensed, it's not regulated, it's not supervised, and there's no continuing ed.
Yeah.
So parents are really just winging it, and we don't want to own it, right? Because we're all trying to be the best we can be, and we feel a sense of failure when we don't know how to do it. So I'm here to tell parents, of course you don't know how to do it. I mean, how could you know how to do it? We need to learn how to be the best conscious parents, and that's what this book, 20 steps, and I teach parents how to become conscious parents.
Fabulous. Well, let's get right into it. You say this conscious parent. What are you talking about?
So, in order to understand what is conscious parenting, I just need to back up a little bit and help
Please.
people understand that most of us were raised in the traditional parenting model. And what is the traditional parenting model? It was a model, or it is a model, where the parent presumes supreme charge. The parent believes they are in control and should be in control, and they should control the child, fix the child, and create this supersonic, happy, perfect human being. If the child doesn't comply, the traditional parenting model says, oh, easy. You can beat them, spank them, yell at them, shame them, control them in any way you deem fit, because you, the parent almighty, knows best. Well, as a clinical psychologist, I can tell you that all, or at least most of the adults I work with, are still recovering from this model of parenting in their
Uh,
childhood.
yeah.
And that's why I had to come up with a new model. And that's what the conscious parenting model is. And I'll explain that whenever you're ready for me to.
Yeah, excellent. We will get into that, and I'm excited to get into these 7 traps as well to the parent-child relationship. But I'm curious to know your response to this. I have been hosting mental health content on MedCircle for 5 or 6 years now, and there may not be a group of people that get judged and feel the judgment as much as parents. Other parents are judgy. Why do you think we judge parents so much?
We are so judgy. I'm judging them, right?
Yeah,
And
right. Yeah,
we
exactly.
parents are so judgy, and we're so bloody defensive. I
Yeah.
cannot tell you, you cannot tell a parent that, hey, you maybe want, maybe you should rethink your approach. You cannot tell a parent that.
Yeah.
And why is that? It's because we believe these children are ours. So they are our possessions, and therefore our identity. We wrap our very identity as human beings on these children. Like, finally, we get to own somebody and do to them what was done to us. So we really wrap so much of our worth around this that we're extremely defensive. And because we are so insecure around our own parenting, because our identity depends on these human beings who are these little creatures who couldn't give a rat's ass about what we feel,
Uh-huh.
that we feel very possessive of this role. And then because we're insecure, we do what all humans do, which is compare ourselves to each other. So, in order to feel elevated, quite naturally, we have to devalue other people instead of having
Mm,
compassion. Let
mm.
me tell you, we moms, especially we women, so much comparison because, again, it's our way to elevate ourselves. And we do it in the primitive way of devaluing others.
Well explained and well said. And I think Claire Kendall, who's watching this live right now, agrees. She says, "You talk a lot of sense, and I'm the model of the old parenting and know that it wasn't the right way." Claire, thank you for that comment. Dr. Shefali, let's jump right into your 7 traps of the parent child relationship. I know you know them, but I'll just launch you off with the first one. You say that a good parent always focuses on the child. This is one of the traps, one of the lies. Can you please explain?
So before I start, let me just give a
Please.
one line on what is conscious parenting.
Okay.
Okay. So conscious parenting is the game changer. It's the new parenting paradigm where the focus is on the parent parenting themselves. Let's clean up our own baggage. Let's connect with ourselves. Let's accept ourselves unconditionally, because until we do, our relationship with ourselves and our children will be dysfunctional. Okay, so having
Preach.
said that, there
Yes.
are 7 lies that the traditional parenting paradigm has indoctrinated in us parents that causes us to feel anxious, burdened, overwhelmed, exhausted, and frankly, not very much fun to be around. So, lie number 1 is that we are told that the child is the focus. And I always say, well, if the child was the focus, it should have been called childing or kidding, right? So no, the child is not the focus of your parenting. And why is that a lie? And why is that so dysfunctional a message? Because as long as we focus on the child and put all the obsession on the child, we will not only drive the child crazy, but we're constantly looking at the child as this museum piece, this art piece that we get to create and paint and maneuver and puppeteer to hang on our museum wall.
Mm,
That approach then puts all the onus on the child. If
mm,
the child is happy, we are happy. If the child is successful, oh, that must mean we are good parents. And
mm,
this obsession on the child is so unhealthy because inevitably there is no child who can match up to this constant overparenting and this constant obsession, this mania that we have. And I
mm-hmm.
often say to parents, we're not parents, we are movie makers. And we are consummate movie makers where we write the script, we put ourselves in the director's chair, and we want our children to be fantastic actors. And then when our children are uncooperative and bad actors, we're like, let's go to a therapist. So they bring the children to me, and they're like, okay, fix my child, Dr. Shefali. My child is such a problem, Dr. Shefali. And then when I ask the parents, oh, how long has this problem been going on for? They're like, since the day the child came out of my womb. I go, oh, really? It's been a problem since that long. And the parent is convinced. And often, after doing work with me, they come to see that there was really nothing wrong with the child.
Mm,
The dysfunction occurred because of the delta between the parents' movie and expectations and who the child truly is. And the
mm.
greater the delta, the greater the problem the child appeared to be, right? It's
Interesting.
rarely ever the child, but
Mhm.
almost always the parents crushing of their fantasies that is the problem. The parent cannot bear that crushing,
Yeah.
and we put all the blame on the poor child. So
Yeah.
in conscious parenting, I say no more. It is a lie. The child cannot be your focus, because then you'll project all your crap on the child.
Mm,
The parent needs to turn the spotlight within and focus on their own evolution. Because when the parent comes with unconditional wholeness, abundance, empowerment, and joy, then they will not use and abuse. and manipulate their children to match that movie, to match that
Mhm.
fantasy.
Mhm. Were you, your mother, were you always a conscious parent, or did you learn this?
I wish I could say I was always a conscious parent, but here's the beautiful thing. We cannot just be conscious parents. We have to evolve into it. We have to literally grow out of the weeds of our unconsciousness to become conscious. So I really began this work after I was horrified at my own ego. I often tell the story of how, I had these fantasies that my daughter would be the only female incarnation of the Dalai Lama, right? And the Buddha, the only one.
Hey,
I
no,
had
no pressure either.
no pressure, right? Because that would be the best version of me, right? I was like, what
Wow.
do I like? Who do I like to be? And I wanted her to be the best version of me, which is what we all parents secretly do
Yeah.
subconsciously.
Yeah.
And then when my daughter came out and was nothing but that version that I wanted, I struggled. I judged her. And I remember she was barely like 16 months old. And because I'm a meditator, I've been trained to watch my judgments, my constant stream of judgments.
Uh-huh.
And I was watching the judgments come across my movie screen, and I was mortified. And I questioned myself, you know, are you judging a 16-month-old, Shefali? Like, seriously? My doctor Shefali said to me.
Sure.
And I realized that the reason I was judging her is because I was coming from my own lack, from my own need for her to be the idealized version of me. So I felt good about myself.
Uh-huh.
And right there, I'd already messed up like 2 years, but I began to evolve and not use her to fulfill my inner lack, my inner emptiness. And I
Yeah.
began doing a 360, but it took me time, and I still mess up. I can still hear my judgments. And I realized that my judgments of her are really my own insecurities, my
Ooh.
own lack of worth.
When I hear it like that, Dr. Shefali, it actually makes, even as an uncle, I'm sure I do the same thing with him as well. And I can see my friends who have kids do that. It's like your child is putting a mirror in front of you. And I look at that as a really great gift, because how often are we getting such a clear, blatant reflection?
Oh my goodness, Kyle, there is no better nor a more brutal mirror than the parenting journey. And I'll tell you why, than the child. Because with our partners, we can blame the mother in law, and the father in law. But with the child, that's you,
That's you. Yeah, that is you. Right.
It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
There is no one to blame, but this is the beauty. Pema Chodron's book is called The Wisdom of No Escape. And I always say parenting is all about the wisdom of no escape. What that means is there's no one to blame. You have to take accountability of your co creation. But what a wonderful portal! What a powerful portal for your evolution. And that's what happened to me. I evolved. I
Mm,
saw my wounds, and I teach parents to use the parenting journey as our greatest awakeners. And in
mm.
fact, the more bad the child, the greater the awakening.
You're making me excited about this, Dr. Shefali. This is fabulous. Okay, so we have our first lie, y'all. A good parent always focuses on their child. She explained that. Dr. Shefali, take us into your second trap or lie.
So the next big one that parents will not like me for is that parents need to be in control. Now, why is that such a lie, and why is it a toxic lie? Because no human being can ever control another human being.
Mm,
Try living with a toddler for 16 hours and you will see there is nothing you can control. So this idea then that we are supposed to control, and then when it doesn't manifest, right, when it doesn't materialize, we think two things: there's something wrong with me, and there's something wrong with this feral creature that my child is. So, of course, then the next thing I'm going to do is get really pissed off. And I'm going to scream and,
uh,
rage at my child because my child is the bad child, because I'm supposed to be in control. This is a lie. We
uh,
should be told right from the start, you have no control. All you have is control over yourself. Therefore, regulate yourself. Stop
Yes.
trying to control the other. The more you try to control and suppress, you will oppress, and then the other will resist the oppression,
Uh-huh.
because that's human nature. And then you will be in a battle, and the poor child will be blamed for this.
Yeah. A lot of people in the chat, Dr. Shefali, are saying, well, this is all great, but my child's 19 years old. Is it too late to evolve and help my child by helping myself if my child's already an adult?
It is never too late to show up in the most conscious way possible. Just the other day, one of my clients talked about her child coming to her 23-year-old who had alcohol poisoning
Mm,
at her first party outside college. And it's 23-year-old, finished college, out in the work world, but she drank too much. And the way that the parent could guide that daughter because of conscious parenting was phenomenal. And the daughter was so grateful. My daughter is 20. I'm always using conscious parenting. So
yeah.
we never know when life will throw a wild curve at us. And conscious parenting really is about being a conscious human. So it's teaching you how to respond versus react. My book talks about all our patterns, the different kinds of ego patterns we have in all relationships, and how to break free from them. So I talk about the ego all the time. So when we learn about our ego and our false self and our patterns, that stands true and strong for every relationship in our lives.
Now, in case somebody's hearing the word ego and going, what is she talking about? Is she talking about someone who's a narcissist, or is she talking about Eckhart Tolle? Like, what do you mean when you say ego?
Beautiful. Thank you. So, when we are born, this is just how I explain it to my clients. So, when you and I were born, and all humans as young infants, we came with a certain sense of comfort within ourselves,
Mhm.
with a certain knowing, and we were in formation, but we were ready to be who it is we were meant to be.
Mm.
And we didn't have conditions, we didn't have a prescription list, we didn't know good from bad, or lazy from not, or pretty from ugly. We just were going to be who it is we were. But
Mhm.
because we walked into the unconsciousness of our parents and their emotional wounding from their childhood,
Mhm.
plus the gross unconsciousness of culture, we
Yeah.
slowly began to be conditioned. So here we were as children saying to our parents, don't you see I'm worthy? Don't you see I'm good enough? And our parents frowned on us, symbolically speaking, and said, oh, no, my child, you aren't good enough just the way you are. Here, let me tinker with you and produce you
Wow.
to become who I need you to be. So I will give you the traditions, I will give you the religion, I will tell you who to worship, how to worship, when to worship, how many times, who to marry, how to marry, when to marry, how to be successful, how to be pretty, how to be successful, how to be competitive, all the list, right? The prescription list
Yeah.
that is burning in our child's crib before our children can even crawl. It's in the mother's milk, right?
Yeah.
So the child quickly realizes, damn, who I am is obviously definitely not enough. And I better become who my parents want me to be. And
Oh, I
there,
resonate with that. Oh my gosh, I resonate with that. I wanted to be my parents' perfect product when I was growing up, even
oh,
into adulthood. And honestly, even a little bit now, I'm like, are you proud yet, Dad? So I get that. If I would love to pull the audience who are watching live, and if you're watching this on replay, leave a comment. Do you feel that your parents were trying, I'm going to call it produce you? I don't know if you said that, Dr. Shefali, but that is how it resonates with me. Like, we're going to create this perfect being out there. I want to know if you felt like that. Maybe if you still feel like that. Really well said, Dr. Shefali. And
so,
I
but
go
just
ahead.
to say, but that's the ego. The
That's
produced
ego.
self. The produced self is the false self, which is the ego, which gives up authenticity of the self in exchange for connection.
And this is probably another video that we should do, but is our goal to get back to that place before the ego took over?
Yes. So it's
Yeah.
to unlayer the ego,
Okay.
layer by layer, mask by mask. But we have to first become aware that
Yeah.
we are living in ego. We are living in a prescribed, conditioned way. We're wearing masks. So in my book, I talk about the 5 masks we wear, and that can be another talk, or when people read the book, we can do a more deep dive. And unless we become aware of our masks, like my mask is the people pleaser mask, and the overdoer, over savior mask, which is why I'm a therapist. And I had to really try to negotiate which part of me was authentic and which part of me was the mask. And slowly now I've come to a greater comfort with being who I am without being excessively in my persona, which is the ego, so that I can stay true to myself. So we all have to go on this journey to uncover who we are behind our masks.
Fabulous. If you're just joining us, that is Dr. Shefali, clinical psychologist and author of the book, The Parenting Map, which just became available today. We'll drop the link in Amazon in the description of this video and, of course, in the live chat. Go pick it up, parents. Go pick it up. Let's go, Dr. Shefali, to the third trap or lie of the parent-child relationship.
Okay, this one is a big one. Have you ever heard the saying, parents often say, I'm only as happy as my least happy child? Have you ever heard that?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So when we parents say that, we feel like the biggest selfless martyrs. We're like, I cannot be happy if my child is not happy. But let me tell you, it's actually true, but pathetically so. But here's why it's something that we shouldn't aspire to. Like, that's a no-no. I'll tell you why. Because that means we are codependent with our children. We're like enmeshed with our children. And I always tell parents, now what good is 2 unhappy people? And we believe that our moods and feelings are dependent on our children. But even more so, that our children's moods and feelings need to be ours. So there's this sense of proprietorial ownership over each other, which is unhealthy. We want our children to be happy because it makes us feel happy, because big emotions were suppressed in our childhood. So we feel terribly uncomfortable, and it is inconvenient when our children are unhappy. So we just want them to wipe all the unhappiness and just plaster a smile on their face so that we feel okay with ourselves. But what this teaches our children is that uncomfortable feelings should be avoided, and which is why we drink them away, we eat them away, we gossip them away, instead of teaching our children that they're not fragile. It's okay if you're anxious, it's okay if you're unhappy. You're not meant to be happy every moment. That's not life. We give them the opposite message.
Yeah, we really do. I remember talking to a psychologist, and she said, my neighbor had their child running up their driveway, and they quickly ran out there and said, don't run up the driveway. Don't run up the driveway. You could fall down and hurt yourself.
Yes.
And her response was, and so they fall down and hurt, those lessons. But it's so hard when, as a parent, to see your child running and about to hurt him or herself. If a parent is just unable to do that, Dr. Shefali, if they say, all right, I like your 6 lies, but I'm not doing this one that you just said, what's your response to that?
Well, listen, if you want to raise resilient children, you need to teach them that life is full of ups and downs and full of crap, and you will be heartbroken and you will be betrayed, and you can handle it. So in order to teach our children that life is not perfect, therefore your feelings will be all over, you'll have a myriad of feelings, you need to know that you can cope with it all. If you want to teach your children resilience, stop trying to make them happy people. Happiness comes from self-acceptance. Self-acceptance means I accept the isness of what I am going through, versus trying to produce again a life that looks a certain way but is devoid of true life. Life in its nature is dynamic, it's vibrant, it has a myriad of colors to it, and our inability to experience the diversity of life experiences is what makes us fragile. So I always tell parents, replace your need for your kid to be happy with the need for them to be present to the isness of their life. If they are heartbroken, okay, we can handle it. If they go through a divorce when they're older, we can handle it. We are not afraid of uncomfortable feelings because we don't believe that we should just be happy. You see, it's such a profound teaching to communicate to our children, but it has to come with our comfort in discomfort.
Mm. This is if your book is anything like how you speak, it is going to be fabulous. It is so fantastic. Let's go to the fourth trap and lie, Dr. Shefali.
Okay, this is another provocative one. Parents are not going to like me. So this lie says you should raise successful children.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
So this one is such a total, it's so toxic because
It does. Yeah. Why? Because it doesn't sound toxic to me. That sounds, yeah, you should raise successful children.
yeah. So the reason it's toxic is because culture has so narrowly and rigidly defined success according to such a minute list of metrics that most of our children are not going to match that. The other day I was at a conference and I asked parents to raise their hands. I asked them, how many of you here would love to have your children be the valedictorian of their class? Every parent raised their hand. How many of you would like their children to be successful gajillionaires by the age of 24? How many of you would like your children, to be the next inventor of the next best thing on earth? Raise their hands. And then I said, how does this make you feel? All of them were like, oh my God, it was every parent's wet dream, right? They were so excited. But then I said, now what if I was to tell you that only like maybe 0.0000001% of your children will achieve that? How does it make you feel? They were like devastated, traumatized, disappointed. So I said to them, wow, you really think that all of you are going to have those supersonic children? And that average is a dirty word. Don't you think average is a dirty word? They're like, yes, very dirty word.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, most of us are average. But average is a dirty word in parenting. And that is insanity because now, when I say all of us are average, it doesn't mean we will not have supersonic skills here and there. We can be a good cook. Maybe we'll make a mean pot roast. Maybe we can cut hair really well. Okay. But to ask our children to be these stellar human beings, a little bit of Einstein, a little bit of Julia Roberts, a little bit of Yo-Yo Ma, a little bit of Michael Phelps, when we are none of that, is really to set them up for a constant sense of not feeling good enough.
Do you feel that we're putting onus on the parents, understandably so, and even though the onus is on them themselves, but do you feel that culture just plays an inevitable role on pressuring children to be super, super successful?
Culture places so much pressure on the parent, and I call it the parental industrial complex. Culture is so smart, right? Culture knows, the capitalistic culture knows who are the biggest prey. Let's look. Oh, it's the parent, because we parents are suckers, right? And we will do anything. Like I said, we are slaves to happiness and success. We're like, please, all I want is for my kid to grow up and be wealthy and happy. Then I've done my job, right? So culture knows how vulnerable we are. So culture prays us, dangles us all these things. Teach your kids 16 languages.
Yeah.
Take them all around the world. Have them finish all their advanced placement for college by 7th grade.
Yeah.
Tutor them and make them super successful so that everyone is laughing to the bank, right? But we parents need to resist culture and see that we are being used as pawns for this capitalistic industry called the parental industrial complex. And we need to resist that because we're driving ourselves and our children crazy. Kyle, let me tell you, children are not allowed to have hobbies anymore, okay? There's no such thing as a hobby. It's a career. Okay, it's something to put on the resume. Children cannot go from one activity to the other. Oh, no, no, no. Now the child has signed a lease for life. Like you have to learn the violin till you're 17 years old, minimum from the age of 7, right? And children are like just drumming their hands on the table and the parent has bought a drum set, right?
Yep.
Because we are out of control, living in the future and living in lack.
Yeah. I see it. I see it. All of my friends are parents. I see it. And if you're my friend and watching this, I'm glad you're watching. Let's go to I think we're on number 5 now, Dr. Shefali, the 5th lie.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So this one is all about this lie is the one that says there are good children and bad children, right? How typical are we as parents when we keep telling our children, oh, you're such a good child, oh, you're such a bad child? We're so predictable.
Oh,
Now
and
here's why.
kids pick up on this. My nephew, sorry to interrupt, he is 5 he's 5. And I said, how's school going? He got to a new school and he said, oh, I'm making some friends, blah, blah, blah. And there's the one kid in my class and he's a bad kid. And I said, okay. And I said, what makes him bad? And he started listing the reasons that this kid was, quote, bad. So I'll be excited. So even children are categorizing from the beginning.
Correct, correct. So the lie says that there are good children and bad children. And let me tell you, and I've done investigations up the wazoo with parents when I ask them, and who is a bad child? And you know who a bad child is the one who dares to question, the one who dares to oppose, the one who dares to rebel. There is no such thing as a bad child. The bad child is the one who is bad for the parent's ego, for the parent's comfort, for the parent's status quo.
Wow.
Right? And the good child, oh, the poor good child, because that good child is going to be just rolled over and mowed over by their parents. The good child is that sweet, servile, obedient child who's just happy to do anything just to stay out of conflict.
Yeah.
And that good child often gets abducted by the parent. And that poor bad child, even though the bad child is like stepping into their own power and trying to be assertive, that poor bad child is going to be killed with judgment and shame and castigated and will grow up thinking that they are really bad at their core when actually all they were doing was asserting themselves. It's so tragic to see how by the age of 6 and 7 children already feel good or bad and then they try to keep living up to that standard.
So let's stay on this for a little bit. If I'm a parent and my child is disruptive in class or is interrupting people, or I ask the child to stop playing with toys and it's time for bed and they won't do it, how do I interact, or I'll use the word discipline, it might be the wrong word, that child so that we can still have behavior that fits into society without saying you're good or bad?
Listen, I raised my child without any punishment. Like, I don't think I ever punished her. Doesn't mean I didn't raise my voice and lost my mind sometimes, but I never punished her. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a way, it just will take longer. And it often has to do, Kyle, believe it or not, and parents don't like to own this. It has to do with how we set up the environment, right? How do we create the conditions for our children to thrive? Often, we have overscheduled the kids, overwhelmed the kids with so many toys, with so many things that the child literally cannot focus. We are not focused, they are not focused. Children need very clear, simple ways of being, ways of routine that follow a rhythm. And if you follow the rhythm, your child will fall into place. So whenever parents come to me, they are literally fighting over the same thing for months. Like, oh, and they'll come to me after months and I'll say to them, oh, we're still fighting about when to go to bed. Like, why isn't it part of the routine?
Right.
And soon I'll find out it has nothing to do with the child. It has to do with the fact that the father comes home late and then the father riles the child up and stimulates them, or the mother's working too late and there's too much noise in the house and the child cannot tone it down. But yet we expect the child to go to their room and everybody's awake, for example, right? So all I'm saying is that there is a way to do this with your children, but it takes your presence, it takes patience, it takes connection and creativity. You know, our children won't just start brushing their teeth on their own. We need to create the buy-in, just like going to potty. They're not just going to go. Or like going to school for the first time. These are great developmental leaps for our children, and we need to prepare them. So I teach parents how to do role playing with their children, how to set the stage, how to be creative. And I have so many ways to help parents, but it requires their focus. You see, in our heads, we think we should just say it once, go clean your room.
Yeah.
That never works,
Yeah.
right? You have to go do it with your kid. You have to make it a game. You have to make it fun. Yes, you don't have a puppet. You don't.
Yeah.
Even your dog doesn't listen to you.
Right.
How will a human being listen to you? So we have to have patience, right?
Yeah, yeah, really great. What I love about you, Dr. Shefali, is you really give answers, actionable insight answers. There's a lot of people who claim they're experts on whatever the topic, and then they give a lot of fluff. And fluff can make you feel good. Fluff makes for great little sound bites on social media. But we're looking for answers. These are parents looking for answers, and you're delivering answers. And if you want more of these answers, the parenting map is out today. Link in the bio. It's available on Amazon. Just think, in 2 days, you could be reading a book filled with answers. Dr. Shefali, we have 2 more traps here. I can't wait to get into them. Let's go to trap number 6.
Okay, so this is another one that will be provocative. The lie says, the trap says that a good parent is a loving one. And I say, nope, not true. So parents don't like me for this one either.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yes, because every parent thinks that, oh, I love my kids so much. I'm the best parent. I'm the most loving parent. And I often tell parents, please love your kid a little bit less. And they go, what do you mean? You're so rude. You're so insulting. So here's the reason why I say that. Because our love is tinged, if not obsessively contaminated, by possession, dominance, control, and conditions, right? We have so many conditions. Now, of course, on a big level, we love our children, but in the day to day, our love is filled with conditions like, if you really loved me, we tell our child, if you really loved me, you would obey me. If you were really a good child and you
Oh,
loved
nice.
your family, you will do as I say, right?
Right.
So we are very subtle, or we say things like, mommy only got angry with you because she cares so much about you. Or, I'm only making you become a scientist or a doctor or whatever because I love you, right? Or I only yelled at you that day because I love you, right?
Yeah.
So it's all bullshit, right? We have to really look at our love. And I tell parents, forget love. Okay, every parent loves their kid. Let's not use that as an excuse anymore. Let's talk about becoming a conscious parent. So I often tell parents, be less of a loving parent. Your kid doesn't need so much love. Your kid needs your consciousness. Because when you are conscious, you are never going to use your child or manipulate your child just because you can. Kyle, I talk a lot about childism. We have racism, sexism, ageism, but we never talk about childism because no one cares, right? We parents are amazing and we are loving, and so be it. But in our subconscious ways, we heavily oppress and manipulate our children to match our fantasies. I mean, I cannot tell you how much I've done it. I'm just open about it, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
then I look like the bad parent, but I'm like, no, no, no. All of us are doing it. I'm just very clear about how sneaky I am.
Yeah, I understand that childism. Absolutely. Let's go into that 7th point.
The 7th one is the lie that says to parents that, oh, you will just know what to do. It's your child. It'll just come naturally, right? Our moms and dads told us we didn't have any training, and look, we did fine. And then we look at our parents and go, but I'm not fine, mom. So the lie says that, parenting is natural. And I say, yeah, sure, parenting is natural because it's biological, but conscious parenting is not. We need to cultivate it. Conscious parenting is a cultivation, and it's the most unregulated, unlicensed, unsupervised job in the world, and we need to educate ourselves. And that's why I've written this 20-step map for parents to help us out of the jungles of our confusion into the most clear, coherent, connected place possible.
Yeah. Dr. Shefali, this has been really eye-opening for me, and as soon as you say it, I know it to be true. It was almost though I had never heard it, so it was not part of my reality. But when you say that, I now can put it together, and I see it all around me. Parents trying to produce a child for themselves. And what you're saying about being a conscious parent, I get so quickly. It might be because I work at MedCircle, so I'm around psychology and mental health all the time,
Right.
and so these components I understand. I'm curious to know because Dr. Ramani is a doctor that we have on here. She's a clinical psychologist. She's also a parent, and she's told me that the number one thing that parents should teach their children is empathy. And I'm curious to know what your number one thing is you think parents should pass on to their child.
I love empathy. And by the way, I have a whole training in this book on how parents can become empathic
Ah,
themselves and train their empathy is so big.
yeah.
And what I would say, in addition to empathy, for me, the greatest skill that we can pass on to our children is to pass on the baton of their own inner empowerment. Like, you are an empowered being.
Mhm.
You are capable of discovering who it is you are. Now, of course, when they're small, it's about, do you want to wear blue socks or pink socks, right? You want your eggs hard boiled or scrambled? Of
Mhm.
course, we don't let them do big life decisions, but we start practicing with them that, hey, you have a voice,
Yeah.
you have a blueprint, you have a signature, and I want you to tap into that. And I want you to know that you are effective in being heard. You can sit at the table, even though you're small, you're mighty. And that's what I want children to really develop, is this inner sense of self, inner connection, and inner knowing. And
Mm.
when they celebrate that, typically they will celebrate that in others.
And I feel like if they celebrate that within themselves, when they grow up, they will become a more natural, conscious parent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A conscious parent really evolves when they themselves honor their own sovereignty,
Mm.
and they have hard won their own expression of self, and they've fought for it. They will never tamper with that in any human being, least of all their children.
Very fascinating. We have more with Dr. Shefali, and we're going to do something more intimate. So, if you would like more of this type of information with Dr. Shefali, click the link in the description, or we will have a MedCircle representative included in the live chat and in the comment section. This link will take you to an easy registration. It is $0. It is completely free. We just need your email so we can send you the link. And that will be for later this week, where Dr. Shefali will go into more insight and explanation on these parenting tips, all based on her new book, The Parenting Map. Dr. Shefali, I would love to give you any last words that you have for our audience.
Well, I'm just so grateful to be here. Of course, today, since my book has come out, I'd love you to grab a copy. And if you grab 2 copies, I'll give you a whole summit on parenting for free. And Kyle will link that in the notes below.
Awesome. Fabulous. Well, thank you all for being here. And hey, parents, caregivers, teachers, whatever brought you here, you're doing great. Okay. Pat yourself on the back. This is tough. This is tough. And she said at the top, it's not supposed to be perfect. No one's trying to do that. We just want to
Yes.
be a little better for ourselves, better for others. Thank you, Dr. Shefali. Thank you to all our
Thank you
viewers.
so much. Thank you, everyone.
I'm Kyle Kittleson. Remember, whatever you're going through, you do. I promise. You got this.